Hi, my name is Bill Oakley. I'm best known for being the head writer and showrunner of The Simpsons back in the day with my partner Josh Weinstein. Worked on many other TV shows, including Futurama, Portlandia, Mission Hill, and many more. I'm also a culinary personality appearing on the Food That Built America on the History Channel regularly, as well as producing ticketed dinner events all over the country. This is going to be a fascinating conversation, and you're going to want to tune in. Don't miss a word.
I want to play a game with you. Best, worst, and weirdest Simpsons writing experience. What was your best experience?
It was probably writing Who Shot Mr. Burns Part 1 because the story was very clearly laid out at that time, and it was just a lot of building of the mystery, and we knew it was an exciting story that was compelling, and it was a lot of opportunity to cram in jokes with all the characters in town.
Okay.
The worst, I will not say what it was, but a lot of times when you were the head writer, you get a script turned in that sucks from one of the writers, and that happened. Unfortunately, it didn't happen too often, but sometimes when it did, it meant 2 weeks of late nights going through every single word, and that we had a couple of those during those days. And the weirdest was probably, I don't know, there weren't that many weird writing experiences. They were more stuff that happened in the room, which probably wouldn't translate out outside of there, like running jokes about like this the broken urinal releasing a tide of urine and washing this TV executive out of his office. That type of thing.
Yeah. Okay, so a bit of chaos.
Yeah.
What's your favorite joke that never made it to the show?
That's been asked to me before, and I don't think I would say almost all the jokes that we did, especially when we were running the show, we put them on. There weren't too many jokes that didn't make it to the show. There were some that got cut for time, but honestly, all my favorite stuff I was able to force onto the show for the most part.
That's good. Do you still watch it?
No, I actually haven't watched it. I watched it a little bit in the last season I worked there with consulting, which was season 9. And once in a while I'll tune in if there's a special episode, like they did one where the Simpsons came to Portland, which I enjoyed. I live in Portland, and things like that. But in general, I don't watch it that much because I don't watch that many TV comedies actually these days.
Yeah. Okay. What was your favorite personal season and episode?
Season 3 was the best season of TV. We didn't work there in season 3, but it was the best season of TV of all time. And there's a number of great episodes in that season. My favorite personal one is Radio Bart, which is one that no one else ever says. It's that one where Bart throws that radio down the well and gets stuck down the well, and the whole town has to rescue him. That one I felt like had everything that you could possibly want. It had a great, interesting story, tons of pop culture jokes, funny cameos, and that whole song, We're Sending Our Love Down the Well, all that stuff. It was a great satire of America, and it had every single thing that The Simpsons could do that no other show could do. And I feel like that one is the ultimate Simpsons episode. Even though it's not a famous one like the Monorail episode or whatever, the Monorail is not a normal Simpsons episode. Radio Bart is the best normal Simpsons episode, in my opinion.
Gotcha. What Simpsons character do you relate to the most?
Superintendent Chalmers. That's why I wrote that steamed hams thing. Superintendent Chalmers is the only sane man in town, and I love that kind of character. Green Acres was my favorite TV show growing up, and it was actually the favorite of 10 out of the 12 writers back in the day growing up, and it was a really funny show about the only sane man in town. And Chalmers plays that role in Springfield, and he's the one who calls out stuff, like he calls out Skinner on Skinner's lies, but generally he drops it after one or two questions. That was his whole point of steamed hams, was that one time he didn't drop it.
What's your favorite food jokes from The Simpsons?
I really like Kalav Kalash with the Mountain Dew or crab juice. Both of those jokes are really good. That certainly, without thinking about it too hard, that's the one I would pick.
You worked on a lot of animated TV shows over the years. Which was your favorite and why?
Mission Hill was my favorite for sure, because it was Josh and I created the show. We were given a lot of creative freedom. We used our experiences from The Simpsons to create a universe and tell stories that were kind of from a Simpsons-y vein, but in a whole different universe with a whole different cast of characters. And I think it was the best working experience we ever had. And I still love those episodes today. And fortunately, there's fans. There's not a huge number of fans, but there's probably about 80 in every city, which is why we went on that tour last year, showing it for the 25th anniversary in movie theaters.
If not any of your shows, what do you think is the best comedy of all time? Green
Acres. It's uneven, but I mean, and also it's 50 years old. But that was that was what one of the shows that developed the comic sensibility of all the Simpsons writers, as I said.
What's one daily practice you swear by in relation to creative output that most people wouldn't know?
I go, it's very simple, but I go for walks. Like every time I'm stuck, I got to go for a walk, and invariably it works. Also, that's where I get all my best ideas. Sitting at the computer doesn't work for anything. Sitting at the computer doesn't work for anything. Anytime I have to make something up, it comes to me like when I get up to go to the bathroom, when I get up to get something to eat, it comes to me then. And so the only thing I can do at the computer successfully is when I already know kind of what needs to be done and I have to write a line or whatever. But if I'm trying to think of a story or how do I fix this scene or what's an idea for my next project, that comes from walking around and taking a walk, walking on the street, walking to the supermarket, whatever.
Mm-hmm. The Stoics loved a good walk. So
I also used to drive. If you drive in a place where there's not a lot of traffic, if you drive out in the country, that also used to work quite well for me.
What's the best pieces of advice you've ever received and how did you apply it?
That's a good question. I would say that certainly the most consequential piece of advice we ever received, and this is by we, I mean me and Josh, when we were in Hollywood and we were struggling. We had moved there and we were trying to get a job in TV, and we didn't have. What we had was a sample script, and it was a sample script for a show that nobody really liked, and it wasn't that good. And somebody finally said, and we had been struggling with that script for like a year. He was like, it's clear from, this is the show Coach, by the way, which nobody liked that much. Coach, we wrote as Coach, we was like, this is just as good as an episode of Coach. And it was, but that didn't matter to anybody. And finally, somebody told us, you guys, it's clear from the script, you don't really like this show. You have to write a script for a show you really like. And so we were like, okay, well, let's do it. And the show at that point was Seinfeld. It had only been on for 4 or 5 episodes, and it was called The Seinfeld Chronicles. But we really thought it was hilarious, and we really wrote an episode. And we wrote a script for we wrote a spec script for Seinfeld, and it got us all these meetings, and eventually got us hired on The Simpsons. So that was the piece of advice that we got, which was basically like, at least for that particular thing, paid off big time. So work on things that you like. Yeah, it shows. People can tell if you're not really passionate about the thing that you're working on. Sometimes that matters, and sometimes it doesn't. But in particular, work on things that you're passionate about, and sometimes that's not possible from a financial standpoint. Sometimes you have to work on stuff you don't care about or you don't like or whatever. And I've done plenty of that in my TV career. But the best stuff is all the stuff that I loved. Gotcha. That's a good lesson. So moving into switching gears into food, what is the best food city in the country? I would say it's Portland, because I live in Portland, and I feel like Portland has an incredible, I'm not just saying that because I'm a Portland booster. Many people have said that Portland has the best array of foods. Like Chicago is a very close second. Chicago has an incredible depth of delicious foods of all types, from gourmet restaurants to Italian beefs to pizzas and so forth. Portland has a much wider selection of food that is, African food from Tibet and stuff like that, as well as, and it's been named the best pizza city in America by numerous publications, not just because we have one style of pizza, but we have 20 styles of pizza, all done great. And so there's a huge selection of different types of things. Also, the bar to entry for chefs is much lower in Portland because we have this whole food cart scene. You don't have to get a restaurant at a brick and mortar and spend your life savings. You can have a food cart for several $1,000s, and you can start. And many food carts have gone on to great success, and restaurants and restaurant chains even. Nice. And would you say what would be the best food state? That's a good question. You know what? I can't personally, for me, it would be North Carolina because I love North Carolina barbecue is my favorite food in the world. And there's tons of other related side dishes that are only served in North Carolina. So if I had to pick one place, I would weigh 700 pounds if I lived in North Carolina, but that would be the place that has the most food that I love.
Nice. As I am a newly moved to America Australian, this one's for people like me. What are the top 3 fast food restaurants in the US that everyone has to try at least once?
Okay. The thing about it is they're not national. They're regional chains.
That's okay.
Culver's, number 1. Midwest has an incredible selection, the best fast food hamburger I've ever had. There's lots of them, and you can get them. They're spreading all over the country. Second to that is Freddy's. Freddy's Steak Burgers, similar to Culver's in a certain way, makes delicious burgers and has a wide array of other things too. So that would be, and then I would say after that, honestly, I would probably say Wendy's. And Wendy's is a national chain. Not everything there is a smash hit, but I feel like they have the widest array of A's and B pluses of everybody in the national chain.
Got it. What is the nicest thing somebody's ever done for you?
That's a great question. I mean, people. The problem is there's no good one answer to that. I have lots of people doing nice things for me all the time, and I would say one of the things that I most appreciate is people mailing me, like in my food business, my food Instagram. I get people mail me stuff every day from all over the world, and I really appreciate. I wouldn't say that's the nicest thing is done for me, but in terms of being a broad swath of niceness, I really appreciate it. And I people mail me stuff. They pay for it. They pay for the stuff. They pay for the mailing so that I can try these potato chips from their hometown or this beef jerky they found at a farmer's market. And that's like, I mean, probably in the grand scheme of things, it's not the nicest thing anyone's ever done for me, but it's such a sustained effort by so many people. I really appreciate it.
I love that. How do you apply that to your life now and the way you interact with others?
Well, I try to be generous in terms of that. Like I try to be generous with people who are trying to do things. I really appreciate people who are starting new things and starting to do things like podcasts such as this one, and people who are starting newsletters. And I try to help them out when I can, because like, I think starting new stuff in this, people are way too afraid of failure and starting new things, and not everything is going to work. Fine. You abandon it after whatever, a couple of episodes or a couple of newsletters or whatever, if it didn't work, but it could also pay off big time. And taking those risks is what makes life worth living. And I think people are too risk averse. And so when I see people who are starting, like this guy starting a newsletter about local grocery stores, I'll help them out. I'll take an ad out in the news in it and so forth and things like that, because I like to encourage stuff. And I can only encourage so much stuff because I don't have a huge, I try to keep it generally to the food realm or something in the food related realm or Simpsons realm, Mission Hill realm, whatever. But I do try to help out people when I can.
Great. And who's the most famous person's contact you have, and how did you get it?
They're all food people these days. I don't do that many. I don't do that many Hollywood things these days because Hollywood is completely broken and the money sucks as well. So I'm not. So I have a lot of different food people that I text from time to time, such as Kenji Lopez, who's a very famous cookbook author, New York Times author, Phil Rosenthal from Somebody Feed Phil, Aaron Franklin of Franklin Barbecue, the most acclaimed barbecue guy in America, people like that. So, I'm delighted to have made their acquaintance and to be somewhat friends with them.
Yeah. Nice. And my last question for you is not quite rapid, but it's one for an interesting story is, what's the craziest story you've been a part of that makes you go, wait, what? How did that happen?
Well, I wouldn't say it was particularly crazy, but I have definitely a couple of our Peabody Award, winning the Emmys and the Peabody Awards were all crazy in their own way. And there's very little logic to that. And so like, I wouldn't say I've been involved to nothing really springs to mind in terms of a crazy story, but I'd say that when we won these things, it was delightful and surprising, especially the Peabody Award, which we got out of the blue, was remarkable and stunning. Other things like that are, various celebrity encounters. A lot of things that happened at The Simpsons where we had celebrities in who were kind of weird. That was always, like John Waters, for instance. John Waters was the best time we ever had at The Simpsons. He came in, he stayed the whole day. He was hilarious. He was just like you'd always want him to be, and it was amazing. Lawrence Tierney, on the other hand, was an incredible. He lived up to his reputation as a real tough guy, a tough, hard to work with guy. But we got a great performance out of him, and it's still, I think, it works to this day.
Well, thank you, Bill. I'll see you on the other side.